Okay. We could talk more and more, but for now, let's receive questions. Give me a sign when there are questions. Yes. Yes, so the question is, why should we meditate and practice for the sake of enlightenment if there are still anyway uncompleted parts, right, that we must go through, yes, and we cannot avoid, right? Something, yes. This is the question. Yes. Again, the question is, do you have a choice in being interested in enlightenment? Of course not. The reason that you don't have a choice is because you are right now in a sort of it's a sort of a middle point, you see? It's a mix. There is, on the one hand, the arising of a longing for reunification, which means that it is a powerful sign of the maturity of the soul. There is, on the one hand, a part that says it is time. And then you are uncontrollably pushed to this type of learning. But sometimes in the spiritual dimension, in the dimension of the soul, time is not experienced as we experience time, which means that even if something that is meant for later appears in us, it appears in us as if it is now. Do you understand? The call itself is now, even if we are not perfectly ready. But at the same time, the very journey toward enlightenment, toward spiritual enlightenment, accelerates the completion of all the human parts, you see? It accelerates by doing two things. One, it shows you those uncompleted parts that you must complete, and it throws away all the uncompleted parts that you don't really have to complete. Do you understand what I'm saying? We don't have to complete everything that our mind tells us that we have to complete. There are so many types of longing, so many types of desires that are not really necessary for another rebirth. And they are like bad weeds that need to be cut, you see, that need to be removed. If there is something that still remains, we don't have to worry about it. It will take care of itself. So I think that both are uncontrollable. The longing for enlightenment, for liberation, for reunification, and the longing for the human experience. There comes a point in which our heart knows, even the Buddha said that there arises a confirmation from within the heart that it is over. It is something that comes from such depth that it has nothing to do with the human mind. It is a confirmation that arises from the heart. The heart is the seat, is the connecting point of the human and the soul. And it arises, and there is a recognition, this is over. This is finished. There is no more reincarnation. We cannot fake this recognition. We can imagine, of course, this is over. But at a certain point, it comes completely uncontrollably. from the depth that remember the journey. Yes. Okay, I said that the process is not linear, which means that it's not that if we had, for example, I don't know, a spiritual incarnation, we will necessarily now become more deeply committed monks, for instance. Like we would imagine that you that you are slowly becoming more and more perfectly spiritual or less and less involved. Suddenly you can have, in the midst of all that, very, very much simpler human experiences. Not linear, it means that we can sometimes suddenly take a shift that is the result of a certain wish, a certain seeds, karmic seeds of desire. So then we must go through it, and this is the uncontrolled part. So you can be a monk, and then you can become a poet, and from a poet you can become, I don't know, just a family man or woman, and you can, because there are different aspects of the human experience. We think of thinking of the human experience like that is very shallow. Nothing in our human experience shows us this kind of linear and stable movement. The human experience is like a diamond that has so many facets, and then we look from there, and there is a completely different experience that opens up, a completely different feeling that we wanted to feel through a different state, a different form. In this sense, there are so many different facets that it is actually very difficult to find a perfect line. Of course, there are jumps in the evolution of the soul, in the level of remembrance, but we can find many fluctuations, many rapid and powerful changes, and many briefly lived experiences that are just for the sake of a particular experience. Therefore, we shouldn't limit. The more we, for instance, we go through past life regression and we begin to recall the different pieces of the journey, we shouldn't expect to build something that is extremely perfectly coherent, because it's something that goes far beyond the logic of our mind, that likes everything smooth and systematic. Yes. Now pay attention, Fidel. This is an important moment, because what you are saying is, here begins, this is how you are starting to realize, we'll talk about it in the afternoon, you are starting to realize how you have different interpretations, certain interpretations that actually tell you a lot about your soul journey, and the aspects of learning that most possibly they cross through many different lifetimes, all the way to this point, in which because many could hear about this separation from the light and either not care about it or feel that it's beautiful, but you feel that this is a trauma, And this trauma is related to intimate relationships. So this means that what stands out in this story for you is this specific theme that certainly needs to be resolved. Now, asking how to resolve this trauma is, when it comes to the divine being, there is only one way to resolve the trauma of separation, and that is through spiritual awakening, which means you go through meditation, you go through devotion and spiritual focus that persistently shows you that in essence there has never been any separation. I don't know if you understand. The separation is only apparent. It's only superficial. At the deepest level, there has never ever been such a moment. And when you realize this inherent unity, not something that needs to be redeemed or corrected, but something that you just need to look beneath reality, apparent reality, this is the healing of the trauma. There is nothing to heal. You're always one. Now, of course, this may be less refined at the level of intimate relationships. At the level of intimate relationships, you actually, the learning may be completely different. And it may be the ability to let go of others, to allow, to realize that in the realm of human forms, there is no such thing as persistent unification, persistent oneness. And that's exactly, I think, perhaps a reflection of what we said at the very beginning of this talk. We said that the divine being experiences all that because all that is the very opposite of what it is, the very opposite of its very nature. So the level of our divinity, there is no separation. At the level of human form, we can only experience brief moments of unification. And we need to know how to let go. When we realize that we essentially are united with the divine being, we are much more capable of letting go in the human form. We understand this is not where our heart complete satisfaction lies in. It cannot be there. Now you can ask your question. Of course, are there constantly new stars being born? The process of multiplication, yes, multiplication is never ending. The universe is always in a constant expansion, and so is the subtle universe. There is constant birth. When we think there was no time, like in the Bible, there was a time when God was busy creating the world, and then God went to sleep or something like that. It is definitely not so non-dynamic, you see. Yes, because sometimes people are troubled. They say that the theory of souls doesn't coincide with the fact that there are more and more humans in the world. But this is only if you think of the divine being as something that did once creation and then got tired of it. You see? as if the realm of the souls is stagnant, is something that is fixed, happens once and is finished. This is completely wrong. Yes. I think we need a more dynamic feeling of divinity. The last question. For now, of course. That's a very good question, Sabina. The question is killing and brutality. There is overwhelming brutality on earth. Overwhelming brutality. And then the question is whether this is as negative for the divine being as it is for us. Because in the human realm, this is intolerable. It is hard to contain. Now, this is a twofold answer. It's a bit paradoxical. On the one hand, yes, learning is learning, which means whatever can accomplish eventual self-remembrance, whatever can enable this play of becoming conscious of oneself is permitted. Permitted in the sense that it is required. This is the realm of opposites. In the realm of opposites, it is inevitable because you cannot recognize in this realm goodness without recognizing evil. Without evil, the goodness doesn't exist. They must go together. Only through the friction is the realization of the good, consciousness of the good. And that's why we're all here. So in this sense, it is all a play. And it is, of course, for those who are here fully identified, it is a difficult thing to digest and to contain. On the other hand, it is clear what the standpoint of the divine being is in terms of morality, because you can never become reunified with it. You can never become indistinguishable from the light if you have cruelty, lust, hatred, and desire. Do you understand? You cannot. And I think this is a statement. It means that unless you have completely purified from all attachment, from all desire, you can never be one with it, with this wholeness, with this perfection. So in this sense, I think there is a sort of a moral statement, a divine moral statement. But yes, from the perspective of the soul, we cannot look at the world in such in black and white vision. The world divided into bad and into good and into and the mature we grow, the more we grow in maturity, the more we realize that we can look from the perspective of the sun rather than the perspective of the sunflower. All great teachers who have accomplished indistinguishable light have taught us forgiveness, and that is not because forgiveness is a moral code, something that is good to do, but because it is a divine perspective, and that it gets us closer to our nature. Good. So that was our very beginning. We dipped into the water of the journey of the soul. Now let us allow it to unfold. We will meet in 20 minutes for our first practice. Thank you.